Hello, guys, and God bless everybody. I don't even know where to begin on this. This has been a very time-consuming study. I actually took like a week off from even studying it because I was so overwhelmed by so much information. And now I'm just kind of sorting everything out. But if you remember last time we talked about Cancer, the crossing. Um, we talked about the constellation Cancer, how it has this beehive in it, and how uh, how are all these things connected? And just recently, with back to the 69 and the crossing over, we just had Patty Duke, was just found killed. I don't know the details behind it. I don't know if she was killed or how she died, but once again, another 69. Of course, David Bowie, Alan Rickman, all these people, with the 69 and the curse. Some people call it a curse. I call it a sign, I guess. Um, but so what does all this mean? You have the bees and the crossing and Cancer, and of course, we saw the crab outside the cave, on Google Earth, and how does this all tie in? Well, I started reading. It led me to Samson, and it led me to the bees that are inside the lion, um, and how he kills the lion and takes some of the honey. But as I started to explore it, um, I just was just kind of overwhelmed by all the information, and it just kind of I couldn't piece it all together. So I'm just going really slow, and this is part one, and let's see what we can find. Of course, we have Cancer, which was the crossing. There's the Beehive Persepe, which is it means manger, believe it or not. Persepe in Latin, I believe, or Italian is manger. So that kind of made something very strange. I'm going to show you something real quick. Um, I'm real big on word study. When the Lord I've noticed names something in the Bible, it's for a specific purpose. Um, every name has a meaning behind it. And what I found was the word for lion means also manger in the female sense and lion in the male sense. And then we have the word bee, which is debar, means word, and also bee. So I'm like, just kind of, a little flabbergasted, kind of trying to put all this together. And what does all this mean? And not to mention, I had a dream years ago where I saw the Lord in California. There was waves behind him, and I told you this story before, so I'll just make this quick. He was on a rock pile, and he was preaching, and he was talking about bee venom. And it just word just stuck with me, bee venom. I'm like, what does this even mean? You know, um, and there was an earthquake in the dream and everything else, and I'm just still wondering. I prayed over it and prayed over it. I've never got an answer, but I think maybe he's leading me to something here. I'm not sure. It's going to make a series of quick videos on what I'm finding, and kind of as just a way, I guess, to organize my own thoughts and to organize what I'm trying to find, and in hopes that you as the audience will see something. But one of the things when I first saw the Cancer, I was like, well, obviously this isn't a crab, or it does not look like a crab. You can deduce a snake out of this. That's very obvious, but this does not look like a crab. But then I thought this was interesting. And we all know that Back to the Future has a lot of secret uh, hidden signs in it. The 911 upside down, the Lone Pine Mall versus the Twin Pines Mall. We've all seen that as, followers. So I thought this was pretty interesting here. The upside down flux capacitor, which makes time travel possible. So just, once again, just tidbits of information. So I started at the beginning. I started in Judges 13. And the place where this is all set is in a town called Zorah. And Zorah, and I'm not sure where these cutouts from. I think it's from Abrian. It's the word study I do. But anyway, I just, some highlights here. Denoting skin disease, commonly referred to as leprosy. Okay. And then I started thinking, well, leprosy, that's kind of like cancer, isn't it? Well, I couldn't find a lot of similarities there, but something to think about. And I thought this was interesting because the Lord led me to a study of this a while ago. Hornets, collective feminine noun, sira, meaning hornets, uh, to purpose that this is because God's creature topples nations. So God, and if you look up these verses here, it talks about sending the hornet. I will send the hornet. Well, interesting enough, uh, there was a, let me see if I can find it here, right here. Let's see here. Okay. If you go to Snowden, um, leaked NSA documents to show Israel and the U.S. created the Islamic State. Now, just like Israel's like us, there's a lot of good Christians, there's a lot of good believers, there's a lot of good people there, and we're supposed to pray for Israel. I got that. But the governments are corrupt. Maybe not Benjamin Netanyahu, I don't know. But there's a lot of corrupt people in Israel as well. But anyway, let's move past. It's no surprise to let's see, let me try to find this here. Okay, so it's no surprise to see Snowden's name attached to the increasingly popular idea that America and Israel created ISIS. On July 16th, Bahrain's Gulf Daily News reported that Edward Snowden has revealed that the British and American intelligence, along with Mossad, which is Israel's intelligence, worked together to create the Islamic State of ISIS, of Iraq and Syria, which is ISIS. This operation, they said, is codenamed Hornets Nest. So I thought that was really interesting. Now I'm going to throw something up here real quick. That's the article. And there's a couple videos that I have a folder of that I placed in here. Of course, these are verse cutouts with a hornet. Shannon Johnson, if you guys follow him, Bold Soldier for Christ, had a video. And that video was entitled Warning Dream from the Lord, Giant Hornet Invasion. So the hornet, I believe, is ISIS. And it is the, it's how God will judge these nations. So if we, that's the article I just read, the Operation Codename Hornets Nest. I think the Lord with this, with the opening of this story in Judges 13, is showing us the time frame with a deeper meaning. And it's not just the surface meaning of, this guy with long hair who topples buildings and, destroys his enemies. But there's a deeper meaning behind all this. This is a time of disease, which you just talked a little bit about, cancer, and obviously the Zorha meaning, which is leprosy, and our enemies, the time of the end. For further information, go ahead and watch Shannon Johnson's, and if you type it in just as I have it there, it'll pop up. So let's go to Samson's father's name was Manoah. Now, Manoah, this right here is the female form of Noah. It's used to indicate the end of a journey or camping of an army, even the resting spirit upon somebody. Denote a resting after labor. Okay, you should have some Bride of Christ, references coming to you as I read these, and I think of the resting place for the bride. One bride's taken to the wilderness, one church is taken to the wilderness, and one church is taken to her place. And if you look at Revelation 12, so there's two, one to her place and one to the wilderness, one for time and half a time, and one for 1260 days. So just some things to keep in mind as we continue this. He was a Nazarite. Now, this is where I need your help. I've only done a little study on Nazarenes, and I read, I believe it was Numbers. Hopefully I'll turn to it. I think it was number 6, if I remember right. And where he talks about the Nazarenes and what God expects of them. They shall separate themselves unto the Lord, separate himself from wine, strong drink, shall drink no vinegar. And of course, Jesus refused the vinegar on the cross. Nothing made of the vine tree. There should be no razor come upon his head. They should be holy. So these are the things of the Nazarite. To consecrate or separate oneself. We are considered as a bride of Christ, the holy nation, separated for God's purpose. A peculiar people comes to mind. Although it doesn't seem to indicate a physical removal, and I'm speaking of a spiritual removal. Uh, let's see, princes or crowned one. Now this gets into the hair a little bit. Now, like I said, I haven't studied too much of the Nazarite, but one thing that does come up is this hair is not to remove your hair, which is almost I see as the crown. That if we are citizens of heaven right now, which a lot of messengers are saying that we are citizens of heaven right now, that everything is already in God's eyes, it's completed work. You have to understand that. So if it's a completed work, there's certain things that we have to do here on earth in the physical to maintain, I don't know, not maintain really, but to practice what we have in the heavenly, if that makes sense. Nazarite, to keep watch, for instance, over a vineyard or a fig tree. Watchmen, some of us are called to be watchmen on the wall. To guard people, or I'm sorry, to preserve or guard from dangers. There was one that said for people here. To guard with fidelity, to keep to or observe loving kindness, a covenant, commandments, parental commandments, wisdom, discretion. I'm sorry. Anyway, I don't see it right off the bat, but anyway, I thought it was here to guard a people, which is what we're kind of doing. We're warning people, of what's to come, of what's to happen. So one thing I thought was interesting, and I'll close with this on chapter 13, was we see that an angel appears to Samson's mother, and he tells her that even though she is barren, that she's going to have a child. This is the same scenario that's played out with Sarah and Abraham. It's also similar to what we see with Mary and the Messiah, or Mary and Jesus and Joseph, an impossible pregnancy through the Holy Spirit. So that's the end of part 1. But it's just, like I said, it's kind of just, if you don't see anything in this, that's fine. I just kind of wanted to organize my thoughts as I go. I had a lot of information I wrote down. I've kind of, for lack of better words, thrown the spaghetti at the wall, and now I'm just kind of seeing what sticks. So, anyway, that's part 1. Part 2 is going to get interesting, really interesting, because it's going to get into what the bees are, what the line is, it talks very specifically of him walking through the vineyard. He rents the lion with his bare hands. So there's a lot of neat things in the next one. This is just kind of to get the stage set, if you will. Okay? God bless. Take care, people. Love you all.